What's up, guys? Matt Brown here for thelines.com, playpicks.com. Going to talk to you about the Philadelphia Eagles NFL season is here, specifically how you can bet this Philadelphia Eagles team, where you can find the best odds, and if there's any bets that I've already made or if there are some that I am leaning towards making on this Philadelphia Eagles team and or any of the player props that you might can find out there right now. As we get going, before we get going, I should say, go ahead, hit that little subscribe button down below. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comments below if there's anything you want us to talk about further or if there's any bets you've already made on the Philadelphia Eagles team as well. Over here on the lines, you can see already have up a betting guide here for this team. So if you guys want to come check out the written form here of all the different ways that, you know, this team maybe has increased, decreased, has signed players, this, that, and the other, go ahead and take a look over here at the lines. We're getting betting previews up for just about every single team already. So be sure and head over there. Check things out. Of course, head coach Doug Peterson, Mike Groves, the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. Last season, they were 6th in the NFL in offensive grade, according to Pro Football Focus, 19th when it came to defensive grade, according to Pro Football Focus here on this Philadelphia Eagles team. Of course, they drafted Jalen Reagor in the first round, 21st overall, to help that wide receiving core. They traded for Darius Slay to help out at cornerback. Of course, you know that has been a bugaboo with this team for a couple of seasons now. Signed free agent Javon Hargrave as well. He's going to help out there in defensive tackle. He was the 4th best pass rushing defensive tackle in 2019, according to Pro Football Focus. So that's a big signing for them as well. Now, there were some losses as well. I don't know how big you will consider some of these losses, but Jordan Howard, Nelson Aguilar out of town, Malcolm Jenkins also out of town for the team as well. So when we take a look here at this schedule, as you see on your screen right now, it's not marked on the screen, but I can let you know they are slated for 4 primetime games this season: 2 Sunday night football, 1 Thursday night football, and 1 Monday night football. You can see 3 straight home games leading into this week 9 bye, which should be nice for this team as well to get those 3 home games as they lead into a bye week here, come out of a bye week in a game, which should be a winnable game as well against the Giants. So nice little stretch right there for this Eagles team. Now, one of the things you'll notice about this schedule here that is a bit concerning, maybe if you're an Eagles fan, when you talk about these kind of out of division games, we're talking Rams, Niners, we're talking the Steelers, we're talking the Ravens, we're talking the Seahawks down here. You got the Saints as well, depending on what you think of the Packers, how good you think the Packers are going to be. You can kind of throw them in there as well. So you can see this Eagles schedule outside of the division, not all that great for this team here, but again, one of the softer divisions in all of the league. So that helps out a ton when it comes down to everything. So let's start looking at what you can bet on here with the Eagles. Let's start with the win total. This is over here at DraftKings. Now, DraftKings differs from FanDuel and Fox Bet whenever we take a look at the win totals here. So getting down to the Eagles, you can see they're sitting at 9 right now. If you want the over, you can see on the 9, you're going to have to pay the 134 juice right here. So it has been pumped up a lot over at DraftKings. Now it differs over here on FanDuel. You can see they are at 9.5. You can see over here on Fox Bet, they also are at 9.5. If you want the over plus 110 at Fox Bet, it's even money on the over. So if you did want the over on the 9.5, you're going to want to head over here to Fox Bet and take that. If you did want the under, you would want to bet the under 9.5 over here on FanDuel, where you're getting the minus 120. Now, team's gone 9-7 over the last 2 seasons here. I think 9.5 is kind of right on when you take a look at this schedule here as far as the winnable games go. That being said, while I don't have this in my account, I do lean towards the over here. If I was forced to make a bet one way or the other, I think I'd bet towards the over here with this team. I mean, you're talking about the Redskins, you're talking about the Giants, you're talking about getting some of these teams, again, that might be a little bit down. Arizona maybe is still a year away from being good. You're looking at Cleveland here, which there are some people who are buying into Cleveland, some people not buying into Cleveland. You still get the Bengals on this schedule as well. So winnable games on the schedule up and down. And again, this is a good organization, right? I mean, this is a way they found to win 9 games last year, despite all of the injury concerns that they had at all the various positions. So again, I do like a lean at least towards the over, but not a bet that is in my account right now. Let's take a look here as we head towards, and you'll just hit, by the way, you can find these at the sports books here. Just hit the team futures and you can start seeing how to find all these deals. But let's take a look at their Super Bowl odds and what you're going to find with the Super Bowl odds at DraftKings. 20-1. It's also 20-1 over here on Fox Bet as well. So depending on where you want to place your bet, that's where you're going to find Philadelphia Eagles sitting at 20-1, 19-1 over at FanDuel. So you don't want to head over there. So it's either going to be DraftKings or Fox Bet at 20-1. You can also make an interesting bet. There's a custom bet that you can find over here on Fox Bet as well. I believe it is down here where there is some of these team futures. You'll be able to find one where you can take the whole state of Pennsylvania. So it's plus 1050 if you want to add the Steelers as far as Super Bowl winners as well. But 20-1 here on the Eagles at both Fox Bet and over on DraftKings if you want to take them for the Super Bowl. If you want them to win the NFC, you can see right here, you are getting them at 10-1. It is 10-1 at all 3 books. It is so your choice wherever you want to go about betting this team. For the NFC, you're going to get 10-1 at DraftKings, at FanDuel, and at Fox Bet. So none of those are going to be better than any of the other ones if you want to bet. And that's the same thing whenever it comes to the division as well. So no need for me to show you outside of right over here on DraftKings where we're looking at the NFC East. You can see plus 140 on the Eagles. You're going to find 140 at DraftKings. You're going to find 140 at FanDuel, and you're going to find 140 at Fox Bet as well. So no advantage at any of the books there. Plus 140 coming in behind the Cowboys in this division. Giants, you can see coming in weight at 10-1, and then Washington at 13-1. Eagles at 140. I do like the Eagles' chances in this division. I do believe that if health is not an issue with them like it was last year, that they certainly could win this division. But again, it's been a rough going last 2 seasons when it comes to Eagles and staying healthy. I don't think that has anything to do with the Eagles in general. I think it's just bad luck, and bad luck has struck this team a couple years in a row. Another way that you can bet this is to make the playoffs. So if you want to bet them to make the playoffs, we're going to actually skip DraftKings pretty much all together here because DraftKings doesn't have any of the odds that we're looking to bet. If you do want to bet them to yes, no, and make the playoffs, what we're going to do here is not hit the player futures. We're going to team futures. Right over here at FanDuel. If you want to take the no, then FanDuel is the place to be. Now, if you're an Eagles fan, I know you don't want to be betting the no and sweating this team to hit an under this year, but on the playoffs. But you can see the no is at plus 154 over here on FanDuel. That's the best odds you're going to find on the no to make the playoffs. If you want to find to make the playoffs here, bam, there we go. Over here on Fox Bet, the yes is minus 175. So minus 175 is the best yes you are going to find out there between DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fox Bet. So you're going to want to take the yes over at Fox Bet. You're going to take the no over here on FanDuel at 154. We do have some player props as well, as you would imagine. We'll start over here. Whenever we look at these player totals and player props and different things like that, actually, we'll go to the awards, talk about the MVP. So MVP Carson Wentz, you can see right here, 20-1 over here on DraftKings. Whenever we head over here to FanDuel, we can see the player props here, the awards, MVP, Carson Wentz, only 17-1 right here on FanDuel. But if you do want to take the player futures here, regular season MVP, you click on it, and right here, Carson Wentz 25-1 over here on Fox Bet. So by far the best odds over here on Fox Bet. You can see at FanDuel down at 17-1, you're getting 25-1 over here on Fox Bet. So if you want Carson Wentz for the MVP, definitely head over to Fox Bet at 25-1. Now, when you look at his chances, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I don't think anybody is going to argue that Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson are the runaway favorites here when it comes to this. But look, football's weird. Football, there's injuries. Obviously, we've seen injuries occur with star players left and right? So when you look at this, I feel weird. Actually, it's something I just don't ever do, is bet these futures with really short odds on players strictly for that injury factor. So you're never going to see me bet a 3.7-1 on Mahomes, even though he is definitely the favorite. He's the best player in the league, maybe one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen when it's all said and done. But with the way the nature of football is, I'm never going to bet that. So, I mean, it's not crazy to take a flyer on a Wentz at 25-1. Should they go ahead and win that division and then come out and win the NFC as well, he would certainly at least be in the mix right there. He would be talked about as far as MVPs go. So 25-1 there on Wentz. Let's head to some of the player props here. You'll click player totals over on DraftKings. Whenever you get up here, you see there's actually just a full-on player props that is a tab right here on FanDuel. And then when you come over here, the navigation on Fox Bet, sometimes a little bit confusing, but you'll just come to NFL player futures, and then that's where you'll find these prop bets over here on this. So let's start with Carson Wentz and passing yards. And if that's where we want to go, if you want the over, Carson Wentz over here on DraftKings coming in at 3,900.5. The over -110 is where you are going to want to bet this. So you're going to take Carson Wentz on the over at 39.5 at DraftKings if that's what you want to do. Now over here on Fox Bet, regular season passing yard totals, come down here, and Carson Wentz is where you're going to want to take the under, because you are getting 39.25.5 at -110 right there. So you can see it was 3,900 over on DraftKings at 110 on both sides. Now you're getting the extra 25 yards over here on Fox Bet if you want to play the under. So 39.25.5 over here on Fox Bet is where you're going to want to go for the under there on Carson Wentz. No hard lean really on this one at all. Really sharp line. I actually think that 3,900, right under that 4,000 mark, should everything go correctly, is right about where Carson Wentz is going to be. So I don't really have a play on this one. If you look at passing touchdown totals, I don't really have to go anywhere outside of just showing you here on Fox Bet, because it is 27.5, 110 on both sides at all three books. So DraftKings, FanDuel, and Fox Bet is where you're going to find 27.5. Now, this will be one of those things where, do you feel like that this receiving core can stay healthy enough? Do you think that Alshon Jeffrey is going to get back in there? Do you think? I do at least slightly lean to the over on this one, barring if there were to be everybody stays healthy there for this team. Not in the account quite yet. Going to dig in a little bit more if I want to play on that one. So let's go to Miles Sanders and take a look at his rushing totals here. So we're going to go to the regular season rushing. Well, you actually don't do this over here on FanDuel, actually, because for whatever reason, they are not giving you a chance to just bet on rushing yards. Everything is rushing and receiving for that over here. So we're not really going to talk about FanDuel for this one. It'll be DraftKings and Fox Bet. Rushing yards over under whenever we get over here to Miles Sanders. You can see we're sitting at 1,000.5 over here on DraftKings, and over here on Fox Bet, we're actually sitting at 925.5. So here's where you're just going to have to make the decision, right? You got to pay the juice for the over at -120, but you are talking about 75 whole rushing yards. You're talking about a game's worth of rushing yards, like an entire game's worth of rushing yards that you're getting. You do have to pay the 10 extra cents on the juice here, but this is like Miles Sanders could miss a whole game, right, for you if you are betting the over here, because you're getting a game's worth of rushing yards, the difference between the 925 and the 1,000 over here on on Miles Sanders. So let's just look at this. He went for 818 rushing yards last season, but barely played over half of the snaps. Like, was really only getting 52, 53, 54% of the snaps for like the first 10, 11 weeks of the season. Now, the last, a little bit less than half of the season is when he really started getting in there. They got away from Jordan Howard and they really started cutting him loose. And when he cut loose, now we're talking about a guy that's now playing over 70% of the snaps, was getting just under 19 touches. Now, that's not rush attempts, but touches per game. So he became a real big factor in this offense down the stretch. Now, did some of that come about because of what was going on at the wide receiver position? If you guys are an Eagles fan, if you're watching this, you probably are. You remember what went on at the receiver position. So did he get more of a workhorse load because of that? Don't know, but he showed out when he was given the chance here. So it's hard to imagine that he doesn't get the opportunity here when you take a look at this. Now, let's skip this and let's just assume we want to pay the extra 10 cents to get the 75 yards, 75 extra yards for us here, which is where I kind of lean on this with Miles Sanders. If you want to play the over, right? If you want to play the over on this, there were 16,000 yard rushers in the NFL last season. Now, one of those was Lamar Jackson. So 15 running backs and Lamar Jackson all went over 1,000 yards rushing. So, pretty decent amount of guys when you consider how many teams do this kind of running back by committee situation. To have 15 different running backs go over 1,000 yards is pretty decent. You look at Miles Sanders sitting here at 925. Let's assume last year he went for 4.6 yards per carry. Let's just assume that he is going to go for 4.6 yards a carry yet again this coming season. But let's say he gets 220 carries instead of 180, right? Because he's going to be much bigger part of the offense earlier on, as opposed to kind of like just getting revved up and something like that. 220 carries at 4.6 yards a carry puts you at 1,012 yards, right? Now, that is a decent little buffer, and that's a decent little over right here of the 925 and a half. When you do the math and you break down, we can do it, sit here, you're probably looking at it on your phone as you do it right here. But if we do 220 divided by 15, that is coming out to a little over 14 carries a game. And yeah, I did it by 15 because let's just assume he misses a whole game. So he misses a whole game, still gets to 1,000 yards if he can just average the 4.6 that he did last season. So something to think about if you are looking to play Miles Sanders. And again, I think I would just pay the juice to get the extra 75 yards. That's so massive for a running back, right? And especially at a position that's so volatile. If you did want to bet the over, these guys get nicked up a lot, right? So 70 yards, 75 yards, getting a whole extra game's worth is certainly something that I would take into consideration. Let's wrap things up here, talking about a couple of the pass catchers there for this team. We will go to regular season passing, receiving yards, and let's go to Jalen Reagor. So let's head over here to DraftKings is where you're going to find the best odds on him. So we will come to receiving yards over under. Right there. Jalen Reagor is where we're going to find the best odds over here. 650 and a half, 110 on both sides. Now, one thing we know about Jalen Reagor, he is going to start from day one. He's going to start from day one in two wide receiver sets, because if you look at the situation here, it does not look like Alshon Jeffrey is going to start the season on the team. It looks like he's probably going to be on the PUP list and have to come back about halfway through the season. So Reagor is going to have no choice but to step up and be a starter from day one here for this team. And so when you look at 650 yards, it's actually not all that many yards at the end of the day for a guy that is probably going to see a pretty decent amount of volume when you consider the guy on the other side of the field is going to be Deshaun Jackson, and we know what kind of routes Deshaun Jackson runs. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of underneath stuff to Zach Ertz, and we understand that Miles Sanders is still going to get a ton of targets, Dallas Goedert, whatever. But Reagor, whenever you kind of take a look at this, you can do the math in your head if we're talking about him being healthy if he can play all 16 games, he is a wide receiver, so there's a little bit less chance of injury than there is at some of these other positions. If he can play all 16 games, I don't have to do the math for you, right? I mean, he has to average under 50 yards a game to get the over on this. So just something to think about there for Jalen Reagor. Now, Zach Ertz is another one that we're going to take a look at right here. We'll come down to Zach Ertz and we'll actually pull him up at all three places because there's some interesting things that are going on with Zach Ertz and his totals. So you can see Zach Ertz right there on FanDuel, and then we'll come down and Zach Ertz down here on Fox Bet. So if you look at the over here over on DraftKings, you can see there's a massive difference. If you are looking to play the over, you are going to head to DraftKings, and you're going to head to DraftKings with the quickness because it is $8.50 compared to what you're getting at FanDuel, which is $9.24.5, what you're getting at Fox Bet, which is $9.24.5. So if you're an over player on Ertz, you're going to do that over at DraftKings for sure. Let me just break things down for you just a little bit. And my buddy Adam Levitan apparently is on the same page as me. Saw a little bit that he put out as well. But let's break this down from Zach Ertz's perspective here, okay? He had 916 yards last season on 88 catches, right? Was getting 9 targets per game last year, and still on 88 catches, only got 916 yards, couldn't break 1,000 yards there. Now, do you remember, we talked about this a little bit earlier for you Eagles fans, do you remember who's playing wide receiver for the Eagles down the stretch last year? Zach Ertz had to be peppered with targets over and over and over and over again because there's a bunch of guys getting signed off the practice squad. They're pulling people out of the stands. They're pulling the hot dog vendor to come play wide receiver for the Eagles because of all the injuries that were going on. And so Zach Ertz has got a ton of volume. He got the most targets on the team by like 48 targets. And the next highest was Dallas Goedert, another tight end. Wasn't even a wide receiver, right? So when you take a look at that, just think about that for a second. Then they got Deshaun Jackson back, right? They're likely to get Alshon Jeffrey back at midseason. They drafted Jalen Reagor. Dallas Goedert is probably going to see an increased role even more here in year 3 for this team. You still have some of those ancillary wide receivers that are on the team, but those are the main guys that everybody considers to get the majority of the targets there. Now, also consider Miles Sanders got 63 targets out of the backfield last year. You can't think with him being an every down, 3 down guy that those targets are going to go down. If anything, they're going to go up, right? Maybe he gets 10 more. Maybe he's looking at 75 targets, 80 targets, something like that. So where are these targets and where are all these yards and things like that going to come from for Zach Ertz? The Eagles ran more 12 personnel, that's 2 tight end personnel, than any team in the league last year. Now, a lot of that was out of necessity, but you have to think that they're going to try to get away from that. Like, wouldn't you want to try and get some of these talented wide receivers that you have on the field and maybe keep Ertz and Goddard a little bit more fresh, right? I mean, get those guys out there to where they're not just constantly blocking all the time. And so we shall see how everything plays out there. But for me, it's a pretty big lean to the under for me here on Zach Ertz. I would be playing the under at 924.5 over here on either place. I mean, you can get it at FanDuel or at Fox Bet. But to me, I think that Goddard's a bigger part of this offense. They didn't draft Reagor with all that draft capital for him not to be a big part. Deshaun Jackson's now back healthy. You're going to get Alshon Jeffrey back middle of the season as well, which should siphon some targets away. I think Goddard becomes a bigger part of this offense as well. And you have to think that some of the targets are going to uptick for Sanders as well. I mean, a lot of things just point to Zach Ertz not being able to replicate what he did last season. And even at last season, he did not make this 924 number that we're talking about, still at 916 last year as well. So, and then of course there's always the injury concern, right? So, football players get injured, and if he were to miss a game or two, that would really, really hurt his chances of getting over the 924. So I'm leaning pretty heavily towards the under on 924 here on Zach Ertz. That said, if you're an over player, like I said, you're going to want to head to DraftKings because it's a huge 74 yard difference over here. So if you wanted the over, you definitely want to head over here and take the 850 over on DraftKings. But guys, Philadelphia Eagles, tons of different ways that you can bet this team, tons of potential for this team as well. Hopefully you found the best odds and the best place to go and bet all of these things. And of course, as always, if you do need an account, like if you're over in any of these states that have multiple books, I mean, that's the reason I'm showing you multiple lines, because you can see the massive differences in some of these lines and some of these odds and things like that. And so you're going to want to sign up for, multiple accounts here, and just come up here and hover over US sports betting on the lines and just click on your state, and you're going to get like the very best sign up deals and the very best everything that you're going to be able to find. I mean, seriously, just tons of free money, things like that. So tons of free bets and match bets and all the different things like that. So all you got to do is just come over here, click on your state, and then you'll find that stuff right there. Guys, give us a subscribe here. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up as well. And let us know in the comments how you are playing the Philadelphia Eagles this season. And if there's anything else that you want us to talk about here on the channel, we'll be back with all of the NFL content. So be sure and come back early and often.